Welcome in to Fans Interference here on a Friday. Exciting show planned for tonight. I sit down with Matt Schenko and preview the NBA, but first we got to get to some breaking news. Matt Forte just announced that he has parted ways with the Chicago Bears and that the Bears will not re-sign him. Forte is 30 years old, a solid running back, has been for a long time, and for him to finish out his career, here, I'm going to list the top 5 landing spots for one Matt Forte. The first spot in the top 5, the 5th spot, goes to the San Diego Chargers. What Forte wants in his career is he wants to be relevant and he wants to compete. And he's an older guy. He doesn't want to be part of a rebuild. That's why even though Tennessee doesn't have a running back, I don't think Forte is going to be along for a 5 to 10 year plan. He's not a young running back. And that is why San Diego is my 5th choice here. Because one, Matt Forte will play in San Diego. Melvin Gordon struggled mightily as a rookie there. Antonio Gates and Phillip Rivers are up there in age. There's urgency to get things done. He's going to go from Chicago, a cold climate, and he's going to move out to California. The franchise could be moving to LA in the next couple of years. More exposure, and Phillip Rivers and Antonio Gates, and tons of reps at running back. Matt Forte can make a pretty penny with the San Diego Chargers, and that's why San Diego is my 5th choice for Matt Forte. Now, of course, the downside to San Diego is that they play in one of the toughest divisions in the NFL. Kansas City's going to be better. Oakland is rising with Derek Carr. And then you have the Denver Broncos. So it's going to be extremely hard for Matt Forte to go to San Diego and for them to make the playoffs and make a run at a championship. And that is why they are low on my list. But Melvin Gordon struggling definitely puts San Diego on a higher pedestal, and Phillip Rivers is a good top-line quarterback that's up there in age. If he goes to San Diego, he could be like Ryan Matthews, and that is why San Diego is in my top 5. The next team selected, the 4th team for Matt Forte, is the New York Football Giants. Now, I know you're thinking the Giants have a logjam at running back with Rashad Jennings, Shane Vereen, Orleans Darkwa, but they have Eli Manning, Odell Beckham, so you have one of the best receivers in all of football, a quarterback that is 35 years old, and they basically have such a void at running back. Their offense, Matt Forte would be a missing piece that the Giants desperately need in order to make a run. And they're going to be drafting all defense this year. Landon Collins was a good pick. They still have JPP. And you have Eli Manning, a winner who's got it done. You're playing in New York, a spotlight market, great exposure for you late in your career. The Giants would probably have to get rid of Rashad Jennings. And I don't expect Shane Vereen to take time away from Matt Forte. So for the Giants, I think that Matt Forte would fit in perfectly. And as I mentioned, exposure, Eli Manning, Odell Beckham, and a chance to compete in a weak division is why the Giants are high. But the point is, the downside to the Giants is that they don't have a great offensive line. Their offensive line is in flux. And as I mentioned, Andre Williams, Orleans Darkwa, and Rashad Jennings. That's why this pick is lower on my list. But the Giants have a chance to make the playoffs. They have a quarterback where Matt Forte can go win. He gets to go to New York with his family, a big market. So the Giants are my 4th team for Matt Forte. The 3rd team is the Seattle Seahawks. Marshawn Lynch just retired, and that leaves a hole at running back. Thomas Rawls filled in valiantly last year, had a lot of success. Fred Jackson is older, and Thomas Rawls is still young. Now, I know Seattle's cap room isn't great because they have Jimmy Graham, Richard Sherman, Cam Chancellor. They're paying all of these guys. Earl Thomas. they are log jammed in terms of their cap. I could just assume because of how many guys that they're going to be paying and how many guys they are paying to keep the offensive line, try to keep that intact. Bobby Wagner. Bottom line, Russell Wilson, premier job. You can compete for Super Bowls. You fill the void with Marshawn Lynch. You get Pete Carroll in as your head coach. Seattle seems like a really good option for Matt Forte to be relevant. He plays a similar style to Marshawn Lynch. And what I was going to say is that Pete Carroll is a coach that is very charismatic, and Matt Forte will like Pete Carroll. He should win the job over Rawls. For the meantime, I know Rawls is going to be a stud. The point is Forte can hold down the spot for at least 2 to 3 more years and can propel Seattle onto bigger and better things. So a relevant spot would be in Seattle. The downside is not a lot of money there. Thomas Rawls is a good player. You might not get full-time. Number 2 on the list is the New England Patriots. Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, relevant. Whenever you talk about an older player in the NFL, whether it's Calvin Johnson, going out and retiring, you looked at Calvin Johnson and you said, boy, if he was on New England with Bill Belichick and if he was competing for championships, there's a decent chance that he would not retire at such a young age. And being in Detroit and not making the playoffs is a reason for moving on. And you look at Matt Forte. I believe Forte, I don't think he was on that 2006 Bears team. I think that Forte is only playing about 2 or 3 playoff games in Chicago. The year where Green Bay won the Super Bowl and beat Chicago. So Jay Cutler, you go from Cutler to Tom Brady, one of the more passionate players in all of football. You have Bill Belichick at the helm. You will compete. New England seems like it could fit in perfectly. He could be like a Corey Dillon type that can come out of the backfield, make plays, and you will be the favorite in the AFC, and you get to finish out your career playing under one of the best quarterbacks of all time and one of the best coaches of all time. That would seem like a great fit. Now, with Bill Belichick, you have to note, and I know this firsthand because I had Stephen Ridley on my fantasy team a couple years ago, and when Stephen Ridley fumbled one time in a Bills game, that was it for a season. He was practically benched, and it was a revolving door, and they had LeGarrette Blount, and they had Ridley, and Bill Belichick has one of the shortest leashes in the NFL. And that's why if you fumble the rock, there's a chance that you could be ostracized there because he just doesn't have any patience. He doesn't take any crap, Bill Belichick. So if Forte, though, you got to take the challenge. Go to New England and compete and be relevant and finish out your career in a spot that you would enjoy. And I think New England is a very, very realistic and strong option for Matt Forte. But in terms of him being a star, in terms of Matt Forte carrying a franchise, this is my number 1 pick. It's the Dallas Cowboys. DeMarco Murray was a stud there. You have the offensive line. You have Romo and Dez. You have a team that can make a leap. You grew up in Louisiana. Texas is close to home. It's in a warm climate, close to your family, biggest market in the NFL. You will be the guy there. Darren McFadden will not take the shine away from you if you go to the Dallas Cowboys. And you have a defense with Sean Lee, with Greg Hardy. You have defensive players that can get you to the next level. And you have Witten, you have Romo, 2 older guys, tons and tons of urgency to make it deep into the playoffs. Matt Forte has a chance to really validate his career by going to the Cowboys. The offensive line is second to none, and that is why I see the Cowboys as being a very relevant choice. He can be paid a lot of money. The window is closing for Tony Romo, and Jason Garrett's leash is much, much bigger than Bill Belichick. So that, my friends, is the top 5 choices for Matt Forte. Later on, we have our NBA 3-point and slam dunk contest predictions. And I appreciate you guys hanging out with me today as Matt Forte has been released by the Chicago Bears.